Hey, let's start the show.
For Friday, June 11th, 2022. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to a delayed edition of the podcast this week. We are a little bit late, but we have good reason for that. Maybe good reason, good excuses at least. I am Norm here, and back after a week off is Kishore. Kishore, you made me wait because you had a D&D game.
Yeah, well, it was a good excuse.
It's a good excuse, yes.
The real reason we haven't seen each other in a while is that we've both been traveling everywhere.
Oh my God.
I feel like traveling is returning. The airports are packed with people. And it feels a little old school Tested in the sense that you're going out to cons and celebrations and getting up to some nonsense inside science museums. Like, I want to hear the catch up first.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I do want to weigh in. I know what you mean about what you and Kate said about like the 3PO thing you made compared to like some of the other ones there.
the
but
Hot
that
Toys one,
diorama was so cute. Seeing like
yes.
the Wii ones use the remnants of C3PO's head. I think you have a lot to be proud of from that.
I'm very pleased.
So I was very jealous to see all the content pouring out of Celebration. There seem to be some really good moments, but seeing both of your diorama be featured in the sideshow booth had to be one of my favorites to see from afar.
And like I said last week, I didn't get a chance to nearly see everything I wanted. Afterward, just watching the trailers, watching the live streams from the panels, as well as the onstage stuff, and that legendary exhibit, right? That Mandalorian exhibit was the big regret. But maybe not so much, because shortly after recording the podcast, I got the notification that I was in close proximity to someone who caught COVID at Celebration, and from following.
What does that mean when there's so many people?
I know. So it was very nerve-wracking for me, obviously, because we have the kids, but also because we had this real big impending travel as well. So since Celebration last week, let me try to remember when that was and where that was. I have been to three different cities. I did a trip that we'll talk about later in the month. Last week, at the end of last week, flew down to Pasadena. Flew to Burbank, to Pasadena for Monsterpalooza. So in a very much old school Tested way, convention that we love. It's a effects and makeup convention that has been on a hiatus for past 3 years. So I was only there for Friday night, but again, like Celebration, it was a lot of catching up with folks, saying hi to our friends.
Did it return with the same kind of verve and energy from the years past? Like all those booths coming back, all like live makeups, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Intense live makeups. Ryan from our team was there on Saturday and Sunday when I couldn't be there to watch some of those live makeups. And we'll see, if you follow us on Instagram, at Tested.com, you'll see his photos and videos of some of the incredible, like I saw someone being painted up to look like they were like a wood creature, like made out of wood tree bark, and it looked so creepy and awesome. It wasn't just the monster stuff. It wasn't just vampires and zombies. It was really, really impressive. There was one where the head was like a castle, like the whole head looked like transformed into a miniature castle, complete with spires and walls and texture. Yeah, and pointed. And it was like out of Guillermo del Toro's most craziest fantasies. So that was really fun, and we have videos from that coming out through the next week. A lot of the same folks we've seen before, but again, having been 3 years since we caught up with them, to check out their newest works. And it sounds like everyone's really productive over the past couple of years and busy. So really happy for those folks. Then from Monsterpalooza in Pasadena, jumped on a red eye and flew to Washington, D.C. to film with Adam and the team at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, which The team has been there multiple times, almost once every year, like clockwork, for the Apollo 50th anniversary. That was back in 2019, and in last year as well, I believe. But this summer we were there to do more coverage with our friend astronaut Katie Coleman, and we did some pieces for VR. So if you enjoyed the Tested VR series, we got some really cool stuff. And Kishore, I don't think we've mentioned it or shared this, but I will share with you, podcast listeners, exclusively that we also have a piece with the Enterprise.
Oh, that's awesome. So you are at Udvar Hazy then?
We were at Udvar Hazy, which was right close to Dulles. We didn't make our way. I know there are, of course, a whole family of Smithsonian buildings and institutions, and it was a great exhibit, I believe, at the Arts and Industries building called Futures. They have David Newman's MIT designed spacesuit, as well as some VR exhibits there. I saw a Space Gal, Emily Calandretti, do a piece there. But we were on Udvar Hazy, which I had never been to before. So, you've seen our videos. It's two giant hangars. It's the one in Transformers, right? It's the one on Dark of the Moon.
It's incredible, because you get to the SR-71.
Oh my gosh.
And you're already overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the history of spaceflight being told through these ships, large and small, mostly large. And then when you turn and see the shuttle,
boom,
it is, and you see all the detail on the shuttle. You see tiles that have been scarred from reentry and ones that look pristine because they were replaced. And you get this, it's a 360-degree view as you can walk around the entire shuttle. It is like a pilgrimage when I've seen that shuttle a number of times. But then it's the ephemera from the Apollo missions around there. I remember, I think it was a glove from 16, I want to say, where you can see how the regolith had eaten away a little bit at the glove, but you still see those purple or those blue fingers kind of come through, and they have so many different pieces, not just from the Apollo missions, but just of ephemera from that time.
So the main Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum building in downtown DC is under renovation, and I believe we have a piece about that on the site as well from our last visit. So some of the artifacts are at Udvar Hazy, and including the Mercury capsules and Gemini capsules, so Friendship 7 right there. And these are pieces that are literally less than 10 feet away from you, not behind glass. Mm-hmm. Important pieces of history. My mind was trying to reconcile the fact that this is a thing that these are things surrounded by things in open air that had been to space and had come back through our atmosphere, and the where, and in my mind, I wanted to think that they were replicas, but they weren't. And because you just don't imagine that you could get so up close and personal with these so historically important pieces of spaceships. They are spaceships right there, right within your reach. Of course, not to actually touch, but there's the density of it. I was telling Danica, when I first walked in, the front building, the main the star of it is, I think, the SR-71, the Blackbird, right, including the Skunk Works logo on it, and in my mind, it was like being in a cabinet of someone with too many toys. Because I turned to Nick, our handler. I'm like, you guys have too many toys, because it's stacked. The density of vehicles they have just kind of stacked perfectly over on top of each other. It's there's no shortage of things to look at, including NASA's VR headset.
Yeah, so I saw your image of that on, I think you must have posted on Twitter or somewhere, and I had taken the same image about 3 years prior of that headset. It's so funny to me.
Yeah.
I love it. It's what, 40 years old now?
Yeah, 1985, close to 40 years old. It has this cat I guess, I don't know, Cat 3, Cat 4 that has like an Ethernet looking like cable from the front, Sennheiser headphones. You see this, it's funny because it's like the same headset that if you Google NASA VR headset from the 80s, right? They did that photo shoot with a model wearing it with the hair blown back, like THX style. And it's that headset with low res, I believe, mono color display. And Adam and I both looked at it, and yes, the idea that many people responded to when I posted on social media was that we had to make a replica, and that was Adam's first instinct as well. He like studied it. He got the phone out. He took photos from it with his iPhone, and he's like, "We're gonna make a replica of that." I'm like, "Yes, we absolutely are." So at some point in the future, we will do, and maybe we'll cram in like Google Cardboard or something into it. But it's like a very distinct piece of hardware.
the replica will shot.
Yeah.
Except with that on.
Yeah. So there was that, and the Enterprise, as I mentioned, this is the filming model, the 12-foot filming model of the Starship Enterprise that was restored by John Goodson and the team at the Smithsonian National Aerospace Museum Conservation Lab. That was back in 2015, and it is now back in the lab for some more repairs on its lighting, and we came at just the right time to get up close to that, also not behind glass. And that was transcendent. It was
I'm sure.
incredible. Do you remember in First Contact when Picard and Data, they go to the missile silo that houses the Phoenix? Mm-hmm. Right, and it's after an attack, right? And they're in Montana, and they don't know if Zekran Crocom's alive, and the base where the Phoenix, the first warp ship, right, that Zekran Crocom invented in the Star Trek universe, right, was a reused ICBM, and Picard goes up to it, and he goes, Data, I've seen this in my childhood. I've seen this ship. I must have seen this ship hundreds of times at the Smithsonian, but never touched it. And then he touches it, and there's that great back and forth where Data's like, do humans, does the sense of touch change your experience with it? And it was, oh, yes, absolutely. It makes it more real. Well, this was making it more real, and it was the Enterprise at the Smithsonian. So nice coming full circle for that piece of architecture.
Very cool. You can actually go to that place, the ICBM facility. It's the only ICBM 2 facility that is still in existence on planet Earth to see where they filmed that First Contact scene. It's in Arizona. And one of the reasons they were able to get certain shots there is because they had to, there's a agreement between the U.S. and Russia to keep those silos open at the top, so you can see via satellite that the rocket is in there constantly. So they could not. That's why it's like open to the air constantly in the shot. Now it's a museum and whatnot. I don't know if the treaty still holds, but it was very cool to see that. And there's a lot of history if you actually go to the site.
I didn't know that, and they had to build that set, save them a bunch of money. Yeah, great tying into the script. So we have a bunch of videos. They'll be out later this year from that trip. But it was a whirlwind visit to DC. Flew back Monday. Oh my gosh, that was just the beginning of this week. Tested negative for COVID. The mask worked. I'm good. The family's good. And
just really quickly on that, I don't want to stick anything up my nose anymore. I have tested myself so many times this week. Just never I used to be like when I was 8, like sticking things up my nose. Awesome. I'm in my early 40s. It's not awesome anymore. Okay, done.
And we unfortunately did not get a chance to go to Augmented World Expo. So that was the one convention where didn't get to catch up with those folks, at Tilt 5. I know, the Vive was there. Magic Leap 2 was there. So some people got hands-on with that. So big regret not being able to see that. And also they had shown Demio, Resolution Games showed a AR version, not for any specific headset, but just to show that it could work, and not the full game either, but they got the assets into an AR experience to kind of see what tabletop RPG and AR could look like. And AR headsets are going to come at some point. tabletop RPGs. It's kind of cooperative D&D play is perfect for AR and perfect for something like Tilt 5. So hopefully my like
That's
fingers crossed. I want Demio to be on Tilt 5.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of stuff on Twitter from Tilt 5 from AWE of people like playing on the table and interviews with Jerry. So I'm glad to see that
Yeah.
coming full circle.
Still waiting for my backer kit. Still waiting for my backer EXE kit. That's when we'll cover it when that arrives. I think it should
Yeah.
be soon ish. We're gonna switch over to pop culture because I do have a couple things I want to talk about. One, I know you haven't seen it yet, but we did get to see Top Gun at the biggest IMAX theater in Virginia, which is at the Uvar Hazy Center, and that's where the IMAX is. It's a 4K laser IMAX. It was packed. We watched it Sunday night, but I mean, it makes so much sense. The museum closes at 5. The screening was at 5:10. People go. They are enamored by fighter jets and aviation, and they buy the best IMAX ticket for the highest, the biggest movie of the year, right? And after word of mouth. So it was a packed house, but it was the way to see it in IMAX, full aspect ratio with a packed crowd. I enjoyed the spit out of it, and I highly, highly recommend it.
So first of all, that's quite the humble brag, being like, I saw it at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. But I will say I have tickets in 4DX, and I I think this is like old school. From everything I've heard, people are like old school summer blockbuster, like popcorn movie. Yes, the IMAX, but just like pay the extra money for the stuff, like bigger screen. Like they send water at you, make your seat rumble, whatever it is, just do it. It's probably worth it for this movie.
I wanted the seats to rumble. It was a movie where I think could absolutely benefit from the seats rumbling, synchronized with the action on screen. It's a simple movie.
I know I haven't seen it yet. I want people to chill out on the best sequel ever made thing, because like
Too soon.
do people not remember like Aliens, Terminator 2, like
Godfather?
Godfather 2? There are some ridiculous sequels out there. Let's just like take it back down a notch, folks.
I think it's maybe fair to say the best kind of nostalgia based sequel, in the era of going back to original franchise decades later and tying up a story. I could argue that the IMAX. I don't think the entire movie was at full aspect ratio, but the cockpit stuff. I mean, like everyone said, it was just so incredible. I think the thing they do so well is, even though so many of their shots are limited to these point of view shots, looking at the actors' faces, filling up a giant IMAX screen, the action is so well edited and so clearly laid out that you never lose sense of the action and what's going on. And the script is so tight that they reiterate exactly the every beat of the trench run equivalent in this movie, and you know exactly what the stakes are and what the risks are, and so when the danger happens, you really feel it. And I think it's a really incredible achievement of editing that they did that.
Sounds like they really took you to the danger zone.
Oh, absolutely! And high fives and team building on the beach. Not volleyball though. All right. Other bits of pop culture news. Marvel, the MCU Marvel Studios has announced that they're doing well, I don't know if they've announced this, but it's been reported that the Thunderbolts movie is a go, with director Jake Schreier as the director. What did he? I don't think he's done anything major beforehand, but apparently, he did Robot and Frank from 2013. Wow, yeah, weird. Okay,
I'm a little surprised on this announcement, because I thought the next announcement we get is whoever is taking over Fantastic Four, because what's his face dropped out, the Spider-Man
John Watts
guy.
Yeah.
So this kind of came out of the blue, and I'm like middling on this. Like, Thunderbolts is great. We obviously lost William Hurt, who passed away. Thunderbolt Ross is the eponymous name for the Thunderbolts in the comics. So it'll be interesting to see what they try to do there. But it gives you the opportunity to pull together Yelena Belova, maybe
This
Winter Soldier,
this is
maybe
the
like
thing.
all
This is
these people.
Yeah, we are many movies into phase 4 now, many TV shows into phase 4 now, and they have not announced an Avengers movie. And this kind of is going to be the Avengers equivalent with characters that people love. People love Yelena, people love Black Widow, they even love Baron Zemo, right? And you have characters that they could bring back like Ghost and Taskmaster. They
Goes
could. I'm just saying they
now.
could.
Now you're just
They
mentioning
could.
characters that were
Right?
wasted. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
could.
exactly. They were wasted, and they could be put to great use. But this is the legacy movie, the culmination movie. I feel like on at least a different perspective on the anti-hero side, and maybe it's going to be that maybe the Thunderbolt Ross, they changed from what the MCU and the change from the Marvel comics. Maybe it won't be recast. Maybe it will be Julie Louis-Dreyfus, right?
Yeah,
Or
I think I'm okay with that. Julie
right.
Louis Dreyfus doing pretty much whatever she wants. I'm okay with.
Yes. And maybe it'll be a chance to bring back Betty Ross too to carry on
Mhm.
that part, right? That could be interesting. The Hulk with after She-Hulk, there are opportunities for tie-ins, especially with Abomination being in She-Hulk and presumably also in Thunderbolts. So, I think the other thing to say is that people are calling it the MCU's Suicide Squad, and I think that's a generalization doesn't really work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same. Like
Yeah.
there's like an arc with the Suicide Squad that I don't think is going to be matched here with the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, there
Suicide
might be
Squad.
anti-hero ness, but that's
Yes.
not
No.
anything
No. I think the
like
fun
Suicide
thing with the
Squad.
Suicide Squad is not everyone makes it, and that's kind of the point. And I don't think they would do that with Thunderbolts. And if anything, the Suicide Squad was kind of DC's in terms of the filmmaking was DC's answer to Guardians in terms of the kind of the tone of the film. But this, I think, is going to be more like a Dark Avengers, if anything, as opposed to the MCU ever going the actual Dark Avengers route. But this will capture the vibe, I think, of Dark Avengers. Speaking of anti-heroes on the DC side, there was also the first Black Adam trailer, or you could call it a JSA movie from the perspective of like the villain.
We did get Black Adam and The Rock as Black Adam.
The Rock is The Rock.
The Rock is The Rock. I thought he was completely upstaged by all the other characters in this thing. When I was like, Hawkman? Hello? Then there was, I think
Atom
he's called
Smasher?
Atomic. Atom Smasher. Forgettable character, but looked good. But, with a bullet, number one, Dr. Fate with one of the best castings ever in the history of a superhero movie. Aged Pierce Brosnan, as I assume Kent Nelson, as Dr. Fate, looked so good. We saw just a little bit of him putting on the helmet and got a flash of Dr. Fate very quickly. That's a big deal character.
Yeah. My fear for that is the mainstream is going to see that, and especially the effects they had around Dr. Fate, and just going to think it's a ripoff or an imitation of Doctor Strange, which is not. And they're completely different.
But it also kind of like they are imitations of each other. Like we talk about like Marvel and DC as if they weren't just copying each other for decades and decades.
That's true. Deadpool, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's a whole history of its own, and it's going to be up to the director to capture that for people who've been a fan of the character for so long. And that's the thing with Black Adam. Like, it's going to be a little bit of comedy. He's dark. He definitely has a physique. I mean, just the shot of him flying alongside two airplanes, two jet fighters, and just like casually knocking one down, has echoes of Zod, right? Echoes of the Kryptonians in Man of Steel. And if you have that plus maybe a little bit of the lighter tone of like Shazam, then I'm really excited for those characters to come head to head because it's all part of that magical part of the DC universe.
Black Adam is best when he's a villain.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
they're gonna
It's
have to
true.
turn them.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, DC, well, kind of DC, Vertigo. We also are going to get a new live action Sandman, and we saw the first Netflix. I guess had their Geek Week, and they had the first footage plus the announcement of the premiere date, which is happening beginning of August 5th, and it is live action adaptation of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman,
Hey,
presumably the first graphic novel.
I canceled Netflix a while ago. Guess when I'm going to resume Netflix?
Yeah.
On August 5th for some reason. No, I mean American Gods came close and it had its moments, especially season 1, but I think it lost its way for it. But no one has gotten a Neil Gaiman show right to me.
Oh,
And if
hold on. What about Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman in Good Omens?
Oh, Good Omens was good. You're right. Okay, I retract that.
But
But
I
no
think
one's
yeah,
gotten Sandman right.
no,
Let's agree there.
no one's
And
gotten
so,
Sandman right outside of I think the Audible, um, the reading of it, the what do you call it, teleplay version of it, radio play version of it. That's good, but visually, it's a very difficult show to do.
mhm,
And it's been in development hell forever. I mean, there was a
yeah.
time when it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt that was going to play Morpheus, King of Dreams, and it is such a. I don't think they're going to capture the density of the graphic novel because so much of it was tied tangentially to DC characters. There's a character in the show that's supposed to be the version of John Constantine, but it's Joanna Constantine, and it's a mixture of I think it's gender bent John Constantine as well as it also Joanna Constantine was an ancestor of John Constantine. So they're kind of combining those ideas because I don't think they have the rights to do or DC wants to do John Constantine elsewhere. But if they get the Shakespeare stuff right, I think that will be really good. And there was some like standalone, and not exactly anthology, but it's like kind of there is a thread. He's coming back into the world after being in prison. If you haven't read the series, he's one of the endless. So if they get the endless right, if they get the Shakespeare relationship right, and they get his relationship with death right, then I think they have a hit on their hands. 11 episodes.
Yeah. I'm gonna watch this. But I'm not holding my breath that they are gonna get it right.
Yeah. Shows on the air now. Of course, there's Obi-Wan, and we're not going to do a deep dive into it. We are,
It's okay.
3 episodes? No, 4 episodes in.
4. I've watched the first 3, and like Ewan McGregor is great as Obi-Wan, and there's stuff happening around him. That's
Sure. I think I complained on the show. I was like, oh, 6 episodes not enough. It's going to go by too quickly. My feeling now, I've gone the reverse of it. I'm like, did this need to be 6 episodes? Like, why not just make a movie or tell it in a two-part movies special event? But I know it's episodic because it's Disney Plus is where the money's coming from. I think that it's stretched a little thin.
Here's my quick sort of take on it is if you're going to advance the story from the end of episode 3, show him weakening, show him like have him earn like him becoming old and frail to set up what happens in episode 4. And I think they haven't like earned that stuff. They're like, what if Obi-Wan was just fighting again reluctantly? And it was just like something about that feels like a letdown. Even though he's inhabiting the character, extraordinarily well, I find elements of the Inquisitors quite menacing. But
oh yeah, I think the Grand Inquisitor is amazing. Third Brother is amazing. I think Reva is going to probably be the shadow protagonist in this, where they're opening a door for her story to be developed, which is fine. I think they were too afraid. They saw the potential for multiple seasons of this, and I think that kind of limited their direction or how they could conclude this season.
I have been waiting like 40 years for a show where Darth Vader just hunts down Jedi. And I thought that's what the prequels were going to be. Didn't get it. I thought even fast forward to now, I'm thinking like that's what we're gonna get here. Not quite. And so that's all I want. Oh well. I
Yeah.
give up.
Yeah. Um, this week also Disney announced their next animated film. So I guess Encanto was their last one. Is that right? Yeah. The next one is going to be called Strange World, and it has this retro futuristic look that's very evocative of Up, that kind of the Sky Captain like design. Um, it's a little bit like Atlantis, I think. It also has a what is it? Will Robinson, Lost in Space, family
Hmm.
dynamic.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I think Disney Animation Studios has proven themselves with the last couple movies. This is one that's not a musical, straight up action. They're leading the sci-fi. Lightyear coming out next week is sci-fi, and so happy from from fantasy, magical realism to sci-fi.
Same director as Big Hero 6 and Raya and the Last
Ah,
Dragon.
oh, fantastic, Don Hall. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, very good. All right, yeah, I'm looking for that. But honestly, I wanted to mention Strange World because sure, I'm digging Strange New Worlds.
So I watched the first two episodes and then I ended my Paramount Plus because I like Picard just still left a bad taste in my mouth. That show's good.
It's good.
It
It's
is
so
very good.
good.
It's
Oh my
old.
god,
It
I
is like a
like it.
return to form Star Trek, and you know what caught me off guard? This is a very mild spoiler from episode one. Is is that Pike learns his fate, his ultimate fate, or close to ultimate fate.
That conceit was so smart
It's
because
brilliant.
yes, because like the character has a destiny, and to have him wrestle with that as a character, as the like impetus of his character arc, so he's not just the infallible Kirk, analog. I think Anson Mount, who he does a great job. He's kind of a hybrid Kirk and Bruce Greenwood's Pike from the J.J. Abrams. I think he's
Yeah.
captured a little bit of Bruce Greenwood, snark and charm, but with kind of the boldness of and the brashness of a Kirk. But I love the cast. The cast. I would watch a show just about sickbay. I think who they got for the sickbay is
Yeah, having Nurse Chapel back there is great.
she's gonna be a fan favorite for sure. And the sets look good. The production design, they have it on point. Whether it's shared resources from Discovery or Picard or whatever, like the money's on the screen. And I kept on watching. I know like it's 5 weeks in, but watching it and thinking about like compared to Obi-Wan, like I feel like I like this show more than
Yeah,
Obi-Wan.
also like the characters were developing so fast, you'd be like, yeah, if they take a bottle episode like later this season, would you be that mad? You wouldn't, because you're getting character development. Like the couple episodes I watched, you got character development on Spock, Uhura, Chapel, um number one, who's played by Rebecca Romaine. Obviously a lot of character development on Pike. Like that's good Star Trek when you see like a whole ensemble and they all have arcs that are being developed simultaneously.
Yeah, it's optimistic. It's relevant. They're not afraid of shying away from directly referencing contemporary times. But it feels like Star Trek. It feels like Star Trek in a very deliberate way. And I think it, along with Lower Decks, captures the vibes of Star Trek. Both for the tongue in cheek, Easter egg vibes, and here more the tone in a modernized way. That it's the show that I wanted after watching the J.J. Abrams 2009 Star Trek.
Mhm.
Like after watching that and seeing that just new modern take on Star Trek and this budding crew and these friends who we spent 2 hours with, like this has that same energy right off the bat from the first episode. Hey everyone, it's Norm, and I want to let you know that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Backblaze. Backblaze makes backing up and accessing your data astonishingly easy. It's the thing that you don't want to have to stress out about. No matter how many places you might have a copy of your files, for us, it's video files, media files, photos. If you have it on a hard drive, a backup local drive, a network attached storage, you could always use an extra layer of security. And for just $7 a month, you can get unlimited computer backups for Macs and PCs on Backblaze. You can back up documents, music, photos, drawings, projects, all of your data, and access those backed up files on the go with their iOS and Android apps. I found that super useful for finding old photos or thumbnails for videos and sharing them with coworkers and being able to get access to that on the go anytime. You can restore that data by mail and get a flash key or hard drive with all of your data shipped to your door in case you have corruption locally. And with Backblaze's Restore Return Refund program, if you buy a hard drive restore, you can send that hard drive back within 30 days and get a full refund. If you're worried about accidentally deleting files, for an extra $2 a month, you can increase your retention history to 1 year. Backblaze has restored over 55 billion files for their users, and they're recommended by the New York Times, Macworld, Tom's Guide, 9 to 5 Mac, and me. Yes, I've been using them for years. You can get a 15-day, no credit card required free trial at backblaze.com/test. Plenty of time to upload and download some files and try out their app. Seriously, back up your stuff and start protecting yourself from potential bad times. Go to backblaze.com/test to get started. All right, back to the show. Another show that also just premiered, and we're going to do a little bit of a dive into this. Not too many spoilers, but there's not too many spoilers to be had, is the newest MCU show, Ms. Marvel. And sure.
So I have two things to say off the bat. This probably is the least heralded Disney Plus Marvel show to come out. There was not much like hype and fanfare compared to like WandaVision or even Falcon and Winter Soldier
or Moon Knight. The billboards for Moon Knight everywhere.
Well, I mean, there's also Oscar Isaac there. There was star power. There's none of that here. It's all like, generally speaking, it's all brand new actors to the screen. And Miss Marvel, while being a sort of cult favorite, is a relatively recent character. Only like 2010 maybe came onto the scene, something like that. So there isn't this like massive fandom. But Norm, this is the best first episode of a Marvel show we've gotten, and it's not even close. This was excellent on so many levels. And I'll just highlight a couple and then turn it over to you. But I would say they took the what came out of the Spider-Man movies is just the youthful exuberance and used that palette and style that we saw in the credits and really like blew it out in terms of the visuals of this movie in a way that I was completely captivated. And then Kamala Khan is so charismatic as a teenager, just authentic, and it's not playing to tropes. It is not the overly depressed teenager. It is like it feels like a normal teenager. Um, and then we'll talk about comic conventions in a second, I'm sure.
Yeah, Iman Vellani, a newcomer to this, won the role for Kamala Khan, and the character. It's actually, even though maybe a lesser known, of course, than like an Iron Man or Captain America, it was high expectations because the character is such a fan favorite character in recent memory, and one of the characters that really help rejuvenate Marvel. Without having to retell a Spider-Man origin story. Marvel just used to, let's just redo Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man or kind of reboot, right? But this was a genuine new character that and leaned into the tropes of fandom and heroism and alienation and all the things that make these characters relatable from the comics. And you know what? I was thinking about you, Kishore, because I was like, man, this is this is a show that really speaks to what it means to be a fan. It's like fan propaganda, fandom propaganda. What it means to be a fan in a, maybe an immigrant um, family, right? Which we both of us grew up in, right?
Mhm.
A pop culture fan, and having those things reconcile. I remember going to Star Trek conventions and my parents not understanding that, or them reluctantly taking me because it was a thing, right? Like that was so relatable. Oh my god! Like I'm like it's I'm giving the feels just talking about it, and like you described the energy. If you haven't seen the show, there is a energy to the direction and the production design and the cinematography, the movement of the cameras, plus this hybrid of animation that they use for when she's texting with her best friend or just imagine the fantasy world that she's imagining in her head. Like it captures a vibe that I last saw in Mitchell's versus the Machines,
Yep.
the Sony animated film, and that it's another coming of age story. That Miss Marvel, Mitchell versus Machines, Miss Marvel, and even Inside Out. Or not, I'm sorry, Turning Red, the Disney movie, right? Share the same vibe of coming of age stories of young women who are finding their place in the world and finding different ways to connect with their parents and what their parents' expectation. And these are powerful, emotional, and resonant and relatable stories. That's what Marvel comics are about.
It it felt like 3 episodes of content in 1 episode because of the cinematography and that animation style weaved in. We've seen so many ways that texts have been conveyed on screen in innovative new ways. I think this has set a new bar for what that looks like. The integration was it just blew me away. Uh, and then I'll just say, like, I'm not going to spoil much, but there is a plot point to episode 1 is about a fan convention, and there's all this talk about cosplay, and they nail it. They nail, like, especially the segment of cosplay that I love to reside in, which is like non-professional, just like out there trying to inhabit the character because you love them, and not trying to do it with like the most technique. It's just like you just want to be that character, and we saw a few different renditions of it, and very much like I'm going to DIY my way through that. I felt so incredibly heartened by that. That actually brought it that there's a couple scenes there that brought a tear to my eye because of
Mm,
how well they captured
hmm.
that entire like experience and feeling and mood, and then
Yeah.
translated that to the con experience.
Yeah, it's why I called it fandom propaganda, because it's like
Mm.
anyone who's ever thought about putting cosplay or been to a comic convention, like this will absolutely not just like resonate, but validate, being a fan of Marvel, right? Because the lead character is a fan essentially of the Marvel superheroes, and the actress as well. So
And I am already started working on a cosplay related to something that came up in episode 1,
oh
and
my
I
god,
know you can guess it.
I know, yes,
I'm doing the dad
yes.
cosplay. It's 100% happening. I'm going to
Oh,
find a way to do that.
that's amazing. That's amazing. All right. Ms. Marvel, we'll be definitely following along with the show and do maybe not by week, but there are 6 episodes. And by episode 6, this one does
Yeah.
not need to wait till episode 5 to hit its stride. It
It-
really just hits the ground running.
I actually am nervous for the show now because it had such a strong start that I have no idea where to go, but I feel totally captivated by her. I kind of like I kind of also like the fact that there wasn't really a villain
Mm,
for the first time in one of these
yeah.
shows. That was sort of
There's going to be
refreshing.
an antagonist. There's going to be a villain at some
Somewhere.
point. Yeah, but it doesn't feel like it needs it. I mean, the stakes are like like in Turning Red. The stakes here are personal, and
Mhm.
in that sense, they're more powerful. It's not abstract, or it's not quantitative. It's qualitative, right? It's not half the number of people in the universe die or disappear. It's I don't get to do this thing I love, and my relationship with my parents is gonna suffer for it. Like that. That is a truly resonant thing. Yeah, they nailed that. Nailed it. Ms. Marvel, debuting same nights as Obi-Wan. It's kind of yeah, it, Wednesday
Very
nights,
strange.
Disney Plus. Okay, we're gonna talk about the one big tech story this week was the Apple event. So Apple had its WWDC virtual conference. They still had journalists fly in to sit, I guess, and watch a video,
Yep.
introduce live. The executives introduced it
But
live, but watch the
but they
same
did
video.
sit they sat at the UFO campus, like
Okay,
at
yep,
Apple
yep.
Park headquarters, and watched it in their nice cafeteria. So there you go.
Sure, sure, and they get their hands on time. But God, what a thing to have to get assignment and fly for some people across the country to go to Cupertino and uh, watch a video that people also in real time watched on a live stream.
You know what I've heard a couple journalists that were there actually say though is like, yeah, that there's something about that that's lame, but after that, a bunch of those people are around, and
Yeah,
they go up and talk to them and stuff, and there's
yeah,
hands on with stuff, and it's not like you're watching Tim Cook up there on stage and you get to ask him a question or something. It's it is what it is. So I think the video keynote thing is here to stay, especially from Apple. I'm fine with that. Should we talk about what they actually debuted?
sure. I mean, it's WWDC, so you're going to see a new version of iOS here, iOS 16, iPad OS 6, I guess all iOS now. And as expected, it's a big change to the lock screen. So widgets on the lock screen, dynamic, customizable, everything on the lock screen. Things that, as you know, the cue the Android fans coming in, that Android has had for forever. Right, Apple's finally doing it their way. In addition to I guess their personalized home screen that you slide from the left into. So all that's more customizable
So,
now.
so that's true. The one pushback against like the Android fans, I would say, is it's a little. They made Apple made it a little bit easier to customize, because there's basically like, we're going to put filters on top of your lock screen and like make it easy to change. It's like, it looks better. The thing that I was most interested with the lock screen is the rolling notifications at the bottom instead of the flood of notifications that
Yeah.
basically makes your
Ugh,
iPhone
useless.
just look useless when it's locked. So I'm wondering how that's going to function for most people. I think that's what I want to get my hands on first and foremost.
Yeah. And on the iPad side, they're really starting to take advantage of the fact that the iPads now run the same processor as the current MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, the M1 processor. And so while they're not merging with Mac OS, they're increasingly making it more desktop comparable. You can see folder sizes and file sizes. You can actually use the Save Manager feature on the M1 equipped iPad Pros and iPads, so you can take the cards that you would be using for multitasking and fit them into little windows. Even when you plug it into a monitor, you can actually arrange them into windows. Although I don't know if they're all going to be running actually in real time, or kind of held in a passive state or some type of low power state for battery life. So I'm not exactly sure how those that multitasking window, they're bringing the idea of Windows into iOS and iPad OS.
I think that's going to matter a lot for the iPad Pro, like a iPad Air, like the smaller iPads. I'm not
iPad Mini,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like, do they still make the Mini?
Oh, they do. They absolutely. The last Mini, fifth gen, or sorry, sixth gen, was a really great. It's a really great buy. Yeah, for the price.
But without the real estate, I don't know how much the multitasking really matters for most people. Obviously, when you get up to like the Pro, or even like the 10-inch stuff, like then you're there.
Well, and also plugging it in. Like, they can support one
Yeah,
external monitor, and
sure.
so if you plug that in and you have that real estate, then again, it's just slowly making it more of a desktop computer, a computer analog. And with the rumors of them doing a big, like 14-inch iPad Pro next year, then all this makes more sense. In addition to iPad OS, the big hardware announcement was the M2 chip, and it's going to be in the MacBook Pro, same form factor, but the MacBook Air has a completely new form factor, and this one seems to be super exciting. It's no more tapered, design. It's going to be completely flat. The screen is larger, smaller bezels, I guess, for that size screen, and it has, you can have double the shared memory between GPU, CPU. It's a more mature OS now with compatibility for legacy applications, and more big developers have ported over natively to ARM. So it feels like this is the time, especially with the M2, to if you're looking for a new MacBook to jump in on the ARM based MacBooks.
Yeah, so I have a 15-inch MacBook Pro M1, and the thing is like a tank. It's like it's so big and heavy, even though, and like I never have to charge it because of how great the M1 is on power. When I first looked at this, I was like, "Oh, that is about like the sweet spot for a
Yeah.
lot of people."
Yep.
Like the flat design, 13.6-inch screen is about right. Like get most people don't need to get to 15, especially with how much the price goes up. 18% performance uptick, they said, from M1 to M2. So this thing will run forever in terms of its battery life. The only like nitpick I have is like, are you on team like you needed MagSafe back in your life? I didn't. I was like,
Ah,
USB-C is great. What are we doing?
so it frees up the USB-C port, and you have two
Yeah, that's a
USB
real
left, and
hindrance for Apple is adding a USB-C port.
I mean, the issue, I guess, is that they couldn't, because the way the architecture of the uh, the data connects, right? I
Mhm.
think they could only have so many USB-C ports, and so this is the compromise as opposed to changing the MT architecture to support more with another controller built in there. They just bypassed the power and added a power port.
I guess
So
so. I understand we don't want to live that dongle life, but I would rather just have USB-C
yeah,
rule the day.
yeah.
And I know you can still charge via USB-C on my MacBook Pro. I don't remember if you can on the MacBook Air. Uh, yeah. Oh, it does say it has a 35-watt USB-C power adapter included. So there you
Yeah,
go.
that's the new one, and there are multiple power adapters based on the spec, and the new one has, I believe, two USB-C ports on there, so you can even charge off that one as well. Yeah,
Uh, Can I ask you about a couple things that I thought were weird, mm, just weird?
there was only one
Edit.
thing that was weird that I want to talk
No,
about.
there was two. I think editing text. Like, what is
Oh
this?
yeah, and
I was like,
iMessages.
yeah, they
It
were
wasn't
like
very
making a
clear.
huge deal out of that, and I was like,
Yeah.
what's the big deal there? And I was like, okay, that's fine. And
So
I
is it
just
going to
moved
be
on.
marked on? Like it'll be like marked as edited? Is there going to be a time
Yeah, it says
delay?
edited,
Okay.
just like a Reddit post. It says I don't know if it locks it after a while or if you
Yeah.
can just edit it permanently and it just says that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what a strange feature to introduce.
Well, iMessage is like this Trojan horse, right?
Yeah.
It started off as texting, and now it is a social network. Essentially, they're trying to make it, as it's Apple's social network because it's the default messaging application, and it's why Facebook, it's why Meta bought WhatsApp,
Hmm.
right? So, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I guess people are clamoring for it, and
Yeah.
it's a little jab at Twitter as well.
Yeah, it was. So, and before we get to the one that was terrible, I do like fitness app just being on the phone.
Mm, mm, mm.
Is overdue. Just let it be there. You don't
Now,
have to have it on watch.
this feature that you mentioned, terrible, or if you look at the Reddit responses, brilliant. And we're talking about continuity
Hmm.
camera, which is software and a piece of hardware, a clip that lets you clip your iPhone with the MagSafe magnetic attachment on the back to the top screen of your MacBook, hold it in place so that you can use one of the three cameras, presumably the standard focal length one on the rear of your iPhone as your webcam, because it is a tacit acknowledgement that the webcams on the MacBooks suck.
I just can't wait for somebody to get this like special clip, hook their iPhone onto it, and like the screen slowly
Dips one side
lean
or the
back
other. Well, that's why
because
the iPad or
the
the
weight of the phone will pull the screen back.
well, that's the they turn the bug into a feature where MacBooks have never gone flat. They always hinge out only to a certain distance, and now you add that weight, it's not going to go full flat like a Lenovo Yoga, and so that bug is now a feature. So your phone does not weigh down the laptop, or it'll
Steve
just the whole thing will
Jobs
just flop over.
is not wherever Steve Jobs is. He is not happy about
It
whatever
is
this is. This is the
inelegant.
it is completely bizarre. It is the combination of all the bad things about Apple. It is like acknowledging they have a problem with the feature, uh, trying to not acknowledge that's a bug, and stick something on top of that, and then doing it in an ugly way that no one is going to use.
And that's likely a wasteful way,
Yeah.
right? Like people, you're just putting a multi-$100 up to $1,100-$1,200 phone that people primarily use as a computing device and using it as a webcam. Like let me tell you a secret: you can spend money on better webcams and just plug that into USB onto your laptop, and it's going to be good enough, and you can still use your phone. Yeah. I think it's it's it is they're conceding something, but they've somehow reality distortion field convinced people that this is a brilliant idea. The one clever feature, and I really am interested in seeing this in action, is that because they have access to all three cameras, the ultra wide angle camera, depending on how this is mounted on your laptop, will have visibility into where your hands are, and they kind of warp and scale that image so it looks like there's a top-down view, kind of like those cars that combine and mix the side mirror cameras and the rear cameras to look like it's a drone flying above you. It's doing that, but to give in your FaceTime calls, to give people a look at what's on your desk in front of you.
Oh no. Do they already have I just don't know because I don't have an iPhone. Do they already have that tracking feature for FaceTime on the iPhones as well? Like they have it on the iPad where they
No.
expands based on who's in the room.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I thought that might be a no, I'm not even going to try to defend this feature. I almost was like on a Zoom call, that would be nice if you're in a conference room, but like, no, forget it. This is weird and terrible.
I'm so curious what the price is going to be.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
they already have been selling a microfiber cloth for like
Oh my
25
god.
bucks. So it's going to be $50 for this weird adapter somehow.
All right. Well, those are the highlights from Apple's WWDC event. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff that people are unveiling from or discovering from the panel sessions. So I'll read on some blogs and we'll talk about some stuff next week. But we're going to wrap up the show with a moment of Zen. If you have not been following, if you've not been on Twitter, or if you have, you may have seen this trend of people posting images that are generated by AI this past week. And there are two popular services that do this. One you might have seen called Midjourney, and it's in beta. You can go to midjourney.com. That's MIDJOURNEY. And you can apply for the beta. And the other one is called DALL-E, DALL-E, kind of a hybrid of DALL-E, Salvador Dali, and Wall-E. And basically, these are both AI services that do text to image. So in a text prompt, you can describe using just semantic text something you want to see. Let's say, for example, Warriors winning NBA championship. Just put it out there, and the AI will generate a completely computer-generated image based on their training, the neural training, and the neural networks, and the image data that's been fed to it. And the results are stunning. Like there's an article on The Verge about this DALL-E 2 That's the new one. That's again, it's in private beta right now. They're letting about 1,000 people in every week. But the prompts, whether it's Bulldog dressed as a wizard, comma digital arts, describe the art style, or here's one was miniature cinnamon rolls. So cinnamon rolls, cinnamon bun with googly eyes. It generates a batch of images, in this case 10 of them, with different creative takes that look photoreal of what you've typed in as your prompt.
So this has been going on for a couple months on Twitter. That people have been posting this. My favorite one that I saw was teddy bears working on new research on the moon in the late 1980s.
Wow.
And it is shockingly accurate because you get they're on the moon and there's like shadows on them and they're working on like an old like Apple IIe on the moon. And I was just blown away by that because there's a lot that are just like sort of cartoonish in some ways.
Yeah.
And they're hilarious and they're fun. But the photo real ones get uncanny valley quick.
Yeah, and if you like scrutinize these images, are 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels wide, like you can see it has the kind of the fake bokeh in the same way we've seen completely fake human faces be generated. There's some telltale signs, but when they're shrunken to relatively thumbnail size, and even like the digital art stuff, like the 10 options they put out are all completely different, but they all capture an emotional essence and a creative essence of the prompt that feel like they're real people designed this, but it's all generated through algorithms. It is so fascinating. And then their hit rate is, based on the ones I've seen, so high. None of it like looks completely absurdly wrong.
Who cares? Even if it's like 50%, this is great because all you're doing is typing in a text prompt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of these technologies that we don't fully understand or comprehend where it could go or what the unforeseen uses of it or the ways it'll bleed into, the physical and real world. And it's something that none of us could have imagined being so accessible and so powerful so quickly, even 5 years ago.
I'm sure there's going to be some nefarious use out there. I love it from like a brainstorming, just sort of a daydreaming kind of standpoint.
Yeah.
It really because it's quick too. It's not this like, sketch something out, wait hours, train a new neural net on blah, 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 blah.
Do you think that as users of the internet, I mean, at a glance, this stuff all looks so photoreal, but do you think we'll train ourselves to be able to discern the nuances between a real photo or not? I mean, I think the analogy is like fake bokeh, right? Portrait mode photos. At a glance, it's convincing.
Sir, I think we're past the humans are going to be the critical people to figure this out. I think the platforms that these are posted on are going to eventually have to indicate that this is not a real photo. I think that's where we're heading.
It's so fascinating. Yeah. So interesting. All right. Well, that does it for this week. We have a bunch of stuff on the site, including still want some Monday builds. We had, if you haven't seen it, the Quarter Crew team visited the cave a couple weeks back now, and they posted their video of their tour of Adam's shop and his props. So you can check that out on the Corridor Crew YouTube channel. And we have videos from my trip to Monsterpalooza coming up on the site as well as some cool stuff from the prop store visit we did, a month ago now, for their auction later this month. So as you're listening to this,
that X-Wing video, where the Biggs X-Wing probably is what it was. Was so good with prop store.
There's some really good stuff coming, including the Star Trek episodes I mentioned with the Star Trek costume and the Star Trek miniatures and props. So look forward to those in the coming weeks. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Kishore, good to see you. I hope you succeeded in your D&D game. Yeah, had fun. Have fun. Yeah, still haven't seen Stranger Things season 4 yet, so there's too much to watch. But Strange New Worlds, that's my pick. Ms. Marvel, of course. What a strong start. And we'll be back next week with another episode. All right, we're going to wrap up with an outro. This one, I think a goodie. Here we go.
Hi there, I didn't see you. Test it.
Minecraft, I pulled that out of my butt. 2 stoplights, I pulled that out of my butt.
The Bluetooth low energy audio spec.
Wow, I pulled that out of my butt.
It seems like it should be against the rules. Test it.
Checks out.
Yep.
Checks out. All right, good to see you, Kishore. Go Dubs. We'll see you next week. Bye.